So when I call this podcast the Found Generation, there's what I mean by that age range is kind of the millennial Gen Z. So this is people born from like 1985 up until 2010. And so when I think of that generation, I think of there's a lot of crossover with modern technology. For example, VCR to DVDs to streaming. People born in this time understand all of that. If you gave me a CD player today, I would know how to work it. And then there's also things like, MP3 players to the iPod, to the iPhone, the flip phone to the iPhone. We've seen this evolution. We've seen both sides of it. Another thing where our generation has kind of fallen in the middle of is the topic of gambling. When I was growing up, gambling was something that was first of all, illegal in pretty much every state except for Nevada. That was the thing to do, was to go to Las Vegas with your boys and watch some football and bet on some football legally. But if you did it outside of those places, it was kind of sketchy. You had to know a guy through a friend. There was a stigma to it. People would talk about you behind your back if you were gambling on something. The vibe around it has completely changed. I mean, sports betting was legalized, I believe, in New Jersey in 2016. And since then, so many states around the country have followed suit. And I think there's now 19 or 20 that have legalized it and fully allow you to go to, legal bookies, whether that's a physical building, or these apps have just blown up in the last few years. I think of DraftKings, I think of FanDuel, I think of BetMGM, that are just spending billions of dollars in marketing each year, their product, trying to get people to bet on football games, on basketball games. And then even in the pandemic, I remember there was a time where people were betting on some wacky stuff while all those main sporting events were out. So I say all this because I want to have on someone who could kind of talk about this thing that young people are really interested in, and we're really only just at the forefront of this and how much more prevalent it is. So I want to welcome on today's guest, Connor Burks, GC, as he is known to a specific audience. He is one of the men behind the MMA Hour, a highly popular Monday, Wednesday live YouTube show. It's like a 4 or 5 hour show. I don't know how you do it, Connor, but no secrets here. You and I are friends. We work in the same space with the same people. We've worked together before, so I'm really glad to have you here. You've been on a podcast of mine before, but this is your first time as a solo guest, so I'd like to welcome you. Thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm super hyped to be here. Not only first time solo, first time on the Found Generation. I'm happy to be part of the rebrand, the reboot, and yeah, I'm just hyped to be here. I mean, you said it in the beginning. Betting used to have such a stigma about it, and now it's part of my daily life in my work. And now I'm here to talk about it with you on this podcast, which is hilarious to me.
That is crazy. Was there ever a time growing up when you went to the University of Georgia, you were in the journalism program, where I'm sure you were taught by the book things about how to break news and about how to write articles and how to host a radio show? At any point, did you ever see yourself, I think I'm going to be on a live YouTube show talking about gambling, and I'm going to get paid to do it?
Never. Literally never, ever did I imagine that. So I actually started betting in 2015. And when I first started, it was everything that you just said it was. There was such a stigma around it. Like, I would only talk about it with my friends that also bet, that I knew that they bet, because if you were telling someone, even like your close friend who loved sports just as much as you did, I mean, that's the whole reason behind getting into sports betting. Like, we say gambling, I'm not into blackjack, I'm not into poker. I love watching sports, and betting on them makes it that much more interesting, always gives you stake in the game. So I just felt like it was natural to get into it. And even back then, when you would talk to your friends that love sports that didn't bet, they would judge you. They would call you a degenerate. Right. They would say everything like that. So it's crazy because now everywhere you look, it just feels like everyone does it.
It's kind of how I feel with NFTs. Like, you kind of really need to suss out like the person you're talking to, because there's one person who will say, oh, you're into NFTs, you're one of those weird crypto bros. But then another person will be like, oh, let's talk about it. So you can talk about it for hours and something to bond over. But I feel like it's that same vibe.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there would be times, when I'm in my college dorm and it's 5 of us and we've all got to bet on a game, and like, you get bad beated, you lose a bet in a terrible fashion. Everyone's going crazy. Everyone's, all mad. And then you're at home for the holidays and you have a bet in and like you lose it in terrible fashion, but you're around your family and your parents. So you just have to be like, yep, that doesn't matter. Whatever. I don't care.
You're dying inside.
Yes, literally dying inside, texting your friends like how you just lost.
Can you describe the feeling for me for what it's like when a bet hits, when you've accurately predicted something, you've placed some money on it, and then you win? What's that feel like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really about to sound like an addict here. Like it's just like it's hard to not talk about betting and not sound like a degenerate. I mean, it's awesome. Like I don't want to hype this up. I don't want to glamorize this too much. So like if someone's like just getting into it, they're just like, oh, that's all you ever do is win, because like you will lose just as much as you win. I can promise you that. But I mean, the most fun that I have in betting is when you cash a bet, but you cash it with people. I love looking at betting from like a social standpoint. Like when you are sitting there with four of your friends, you have a game on, you watch the entire thing. Maybe you're drinking or you got a bunch of good food with you and you're just enjoying the sporting event. You're enjoying the company you're with. Everyone has the same stake in the game. And then when it cashes, I mean, everyone is hyped up. Like everyone is going crazy. Everyone's in a better mood. It's just more fun. Like last night, the New York Rangers played in a playoff game and they went into overtime, and I was at a Rangers bar and I had bet on the Rangers and they won in overtime and everyone went crazy and it was fantastic. I mean, yeah, it's awesome.
Okay, so you've stated the case for why people could get into gambling. It makes watching sporting events more fun. There's a social aspect to it, and then everyone loves winning money. So if you were to advise someone who's never gotten into sports gambling before and you were going to tell them, hey, I think you should get into sports gambling, how would you tell them to do it in a responsible way?
Yeah, I would probably never tell anyone like to get into sports gambling. That would be number one. But I mean, if I was going to give someone advice on getting into it responsibly, start slow, start low, never bet any money that it matters to you if you lose. Like if you are getting like erratically angry because of how much money you lost, you are betting way too much money. Something that with these sports books, that it's not the old days of like the bookies and you know, like the sketchy people in the dark alleys that you know you can build a credit up with, and then you owe them money and then you can't pay it off, and then you know you're in deep waters and you're in huge trouble. Those days are pretty much over, because like with at least in New York with DraftKings Sportsbook, FanDuel Sportsbook, you can't even use a credit card. So like you have to use like PayPal, debit card, where you actually have the money. Like
That's smart.
So basically, like you're not getting indebted to a sports book where you're going to have to pay it off later. You are giving them money you have, and then you can play with that in the balance. So I love the stories of people that are getting into it and they're doing the 10-leg parlays that they put 50 cents on. And, you know, a big bet for them is $5. That is the best way to start. You got to learn how to do it, the best practices to do it, everything like that first, because there's nothing worse than seeing someone down bad off of losing like a huge bet.
So you don't need to tell me how much money you're betting, and because you know you bet primarily on fighting now, but you bet on football and NBA
Sure, yeah.
and all that stuff. How do you go about setting aside certain percentage of money that you have for betting, and then once you set or hit that number, do you stop for the month or however long you time it out?
Yeah, so this is a fantastic question. This is something that like a poker player would go by. It's called a bankroll. So like I have a set amount of money in an account, like a DraftKings account or a FanDuel account or anything like that. And I always try to keep it there. And then when I win money, I will take out and bring it back down to that number. And so like your bankroll is going to be way bigger than the amount of money like that you're normally placing on a wager. So like most people think that like one bet should be like 1% of your bankroll. So like if you have $500 in your account, like you're usually betting like $5. So that way I never have to worry about it. So it's not like every bet that I place, I'm like swiping my card and it's like directly coming out of my account. It's already like set aside into the sportsbook account.
Gotcha. Okay. So you've thrown out a couple terms here that, you know, that I know, but probably some of the listeners don't. So I think of things like a parlay. What is a parlay?
Yeah. So a parlay is when you take more than one bet. You can do, I mean, some people get ridiculous with them, 5, 10, 15 legs. You're basically making a selection and you get a much bigger payout if it hits, but every bet in the selection has to hit. So say you're watching the NFL. All or nothing, exactly. Say you're watching the NFL, you want the Patriots to win, the Falcons to win, and the Lions to win. You take all three of them. If just the Falcons and Patriots win and the Lions lose, you lose. If just one wins, you lose. Like all three have to hit. People get sucked into these, especially early in their betting days, because the payouts are so big. Sportsbooks love parlays because they make a ton of money off of them, because most of the time parlays do not hit.
Yeah. Is there a minimum number of legs has to be? Two. Okay.
Yep. So you can go from 2. It used to be the books like would limit you at like 8 or 10, but now I see like 18, 20. Like I feel like these sports books are just like, sure, keep throwing legs on and hand us money.
What is the highest number of legs you've ever hit on a parlay?
Like 8 or 9, like a college football Saturday, just throwing in just like those you just call them like degenerate plays where it's just like, let's just have some fun. $5 to win 280 and like, let's just see if it hits.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. And so you see it in head-to-head sports all the time. Okay. So for example, Patriots are playing the Falcons and the Patriots are favored by -5.5. What does that mean?
Yeah, so that means what you said. They're favored by 5.5. So you're going to see a -5.5 next to them. If you were to place that bet on Patriots -5.5, they would have to win the game by 6 points or more. Now, if you bet on, say it was the Falcons +5.5, they're the underdogs. So they can either lose the game by 5 or less or win, and your bet will hit. Obviously, when you're betting on the favorite, the likelihood of them winning is higher. At least the sports books, the medias, the fans think that they're going to win. So that's why you're laying the points with them.
Okay, I want to get back to the sports books in a moment, but kind of another definition, just like very simple. In over-under, the actually, wait, I'm not sure if I understand the over-under. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, I mean, over-under is as simple as it gets. So you're just going to combine the 2 points of the teams. And if it's less or more than the over-under, that is the under or the over hitting. So let's say it's a basketball game. NBA playoffs are on. They set an over-under of 217.5. Hypothetically, it's the Warriors and the Mavericks playing, and the Mavericks win 111-108. You combine those, that's 219. The over would hit in that situation.
Gotcha. Okay. Now the sports books. So the sports books, the people behind these are supposedly the smartest people in sports. They see everything that's going to happen before it happens. How do they do this?
I really don't know. Sometimes I am blown away by, people just call it Vegas. Because that's where this all started.
The blanket term Vegas. Vegas always knows.
Yeah, the desert, the boys out in the desert, whatever you want to call it. I mean, they obviously have professionals that are assigned to each individual sport that know it better than anything else. And so they set these lines on these games, and sometimes it just seems insane that they come this close to what they're trying to do. But at the same time, they are also just trying to essentially get action on each side of a play, and you have to pay juice to a sports book. You're rarely going to place a bet that's going to be $5 to win $5. You're going to place a bet that's going to be $5 to win $4.92 or like $10 to win $9.89. That's called the juice, the vig. Those are like terminologies for that. And that pretty much ensures that the house always wins. So even if they have a 50-50 split on the bets that they're getting, which is essentially what they're going for, they're raking in money on the juice.
Gotcha. Okay. Last question on the gambling side of things. So back to, okay, someone wants to get into gambling. I've got a friend who wants to place some money on some MMA fights, but has absolutely not the slightest idea of how to get started with it. So how would you tell them to go about it? What's the process?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing would be if they live in a state where it's legalized now. It's insane how many states have it legalized. Let's say they live in, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, somewhere where it is legal. It is as easy as going into your app store on your phone, downloading the app for whatever sportsbook you choose, DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, whatever it may be. You download the app, you sign up like you're signing up for an email account, a gym membership, anything like that. You can sign up in no time at all. They'll give you some sort of bonus, some sort of benefit for signing up with their sportsbook. And then you say you wanted to bet on fights, you go to the UFC tab, they'll have every single fight that night. They're going to have every single lineup. They'll have prop bets. You'll be overwhelmed, honestly. If it's your first time betting, there's no doubt about that. And then you pick the fighters that you think are going to win and you place the bet. I mean, they've made it insanely easy.
And you can pretty much bet on anything you want. There are so many bets out there to be taken in not just fighting, but in sports around the world, sports you didn't even know were sports.
Yes. I mean, they will take action on anything and everything. I mean, I'm trying to think, like, I've bet on like the Tour de France. I've bet on the hot dog eating contest. I'm trying to think of the most ridiculous things I've bet on. And, I look like I can't get over how much of it. I shouldn't have worn a black shirt. I like that you can see the peach here right now, but I feel like I'm just in the black shirt and the black hat, just talking about betting. I look like such a degenerate. My parents would think I failed here, but like people will it's almost like people will judge you on the weirdness of the sport that you're betting on. Like they'll be like, oh man, like you're such a degenerate for betting on the hot dog eating contest. And it's just like, 95% of the time when I'm betting on stuff, it's really only with the fights for the MMA hour that I'm doing like hard research and I take it incredibly seriously, which is what you should be doing in betting if you're looking to create a profit. But 95% of the time, I'm doing it for fun. That's why I do this. That's what betting should be. It should, like sports betting, it should just be fun. Like it should just be you and your boys. Like it shouldn't be like wildly stressful. It should not be like causing you extreme anger over the money you're losing. Like it should just be you having fun. And 4th of July, it's fun to bet on the hot dog eating contest.
What does that research for you consist of?
For fights or for just
for
like
your
anything?
Fights?
Yeah. So like, I mean, for fights, it's like, it's crazy how like I just recently got into it with the MMA hour, like the database of like tape indexes where you can go back and watch fighters' old fights. Like you look through stats, like it's pretty labor intensive. Like it is hours of research every week. But like I said, because it's for the show, because it does go out to a pretty wide audience, I like to take it seriously. And like, it's not just me and my friends just throwing in a bet on a Saturday night.
So do you feel any pressure on you for example, or to the audience that doesn't know you, you go on this show Monday, Wednesdays, you have a segment on there where you talk for 20, 30 minutes and you basically just give out, hey, here's the fights upcoming this weekend. Here's the bets that I'm taking. And you justify, you explain why you are, and then you invite people to, take those bets with you or just take some of the information that you gave to inform their own bets. So when you're sitting down, watching Saturday night with your friends, with your girlfriend, eating good food, having good drinks, whatever, I know you're sweating because you have your own bets, but you're also sweating, I imagine, because you feel a weight, a responsibility for people who may be taking your advice.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you've seen me in a situation like that. I mean, it's like I feel pressure, but I shouldn't because I'm giving out the picks for free. I would never give out picks for money. That to me, that just sounds miserable because then you're obligated to win. When you're giving them out for free, no one has to take them. I never speak overconfidently about picks. I've been betting way too long to realize confidence is almost a mirage sometimes. Like you will think it's the biggest stone cold lock and you'll lose. Like, it's just like, I just feel pressure just because I just hate giving out losing picks, knowing that people took them based on my judgments and based on what I said. And then it's even worse when people like hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, and like remind me that I gave them a losing pick because it makes me feel like even worse. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like when I'm rooting for a bet, like especially like when it comes to UFC, I am cheering harder for it to win, for like my tracked things to go up, for me to give out winners than I am for the money I'm actually winning on it. The money is just like a secondary thing when I'm betting on fights.